Board of Commissioners Commission meeting. Your Dougherty County Board of Commissioners is chaired by Christopher Cohelis. Your Dougherty County Commissioners include, from District 1, Lamar Hudgens; from District 2, Victor Edwards; from District 3, Clinton Johnson; from District 4, Russell Gray; from District 5, Gloria Gaines; and from District 6, Anthony Jones. We are also joined by County Administrator Michael McCoy, Assistant County Administrator Scott Addison, County Clerk Juwan Ware, and County Attorney Spencer Lee. This is your Dougherty County Board of Commissioners Commission meeting.
All right, good morning, everyone. Let's try that again. Good morning, everyone. All right, very good. Let's go ahead and call to order the Dougherty County work session for September 14th, 2020. Let's begin with a roll call. Commissioner Gaines.
Present. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner Gaines. Commissioner Jones.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Present.
Good morning. Commissioner Gray.
Good morning, Chairman. Here.
All right. Commissioner Johnson.
Good morning, sir. Present.
All right. Commissioner Edwards. Present. Commissioner Hudgens. All right. Commissioner Hudgens is not present today. Madam Clerk, if you'll mark the attendance for the minutes. And I do want to recognize Commissioner-elect Ed Newsom and thank him for his participation and presence here today. Good morning. All right, let's go ahead and begin with delegations. This is where the Commission will hear comments of those items pertaining to Dougherty County for which a public hearing has not been held or scheduled. We ask everyone to be brief, to the point, and considerate of time for others. And our first is Mental Health Development, Disabilities, and Addictive Disease Advisory Council Regional 4 Board members, Debbie Richardson, Tasha Dean, and Father Nick Roosevelt, who are present to provide an update to the Commission on the NAMI, the National Alliances of Mental Illness Walk. Good morning.
And all that are present, Mr. Edwards, and those that are on Zoom or whatever. You all are so interested and kind to allow, and interested about mental health and allowing us to talk. We're going to speak today on NAMI, which is the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and it is a grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for millions of Americans affected by mental illness. Albany is fortunate to have a very active group, and NAMI has been providing education, support, and advocacy for individuals and families in our community. NAMI trains volunteers like myself to offer programs in the community. I have benefited from these free trainings, and I've been able to teach QPR, which is a suicide prevention program, to, probably at least a couple of hundred people in our community over the years. And this month actually is Suicide Prevention Month, and we see that the suicide rate is on the rise, unfortunately. I've also been trained for CITY, which is Crisis Intervention Training for Youth, and I have been able to participate and teach officers in our some correctional officers and others in our community who work with young people with mental illness or exposed. Also, along with Chairman Cohelis, Nick and I, and a lot of others from our community attended a NAMI civic lunch last year to talk about mental illness, and we shared our thoughts and feelings about that program. So those are some things that NAMI has done. This is Father Nick Roosevelt. He's the rector of St. Patrick's Episcopal Church, and it along with the St. Paul's and St. John's and St. Mark's Episcopal Church are sponsors this year for NAMI. And Father Roosevelt is going to speak to you now.
Good morning, Father.
Good morning. Thank you so much for allowing us to be with you. We're here for awareness. We're here for those watching at home. We're here for the commissioners. Thank you very much for your time today. I want to share just two brief things. One, that NAMI is continued in the pandemic, much like here, by offering our programs online. So if you are in a situation where you have a mental illness issue or situation in your family, there are resources available to you right now. Often suicide prevention gets published in a big way for phone numbers, but if you're talking daily issues, we have support groups that are ready to walk with you and your family in those journeys. Through and beyond the pandemic, we offer typically programs where a NAMI facilitator can come into your organization, into your church, and offer family-to-family peer support. And we hope that those programs will get going through and beyond the pandemic again. The other thing that I want to make an impassioned plea for awareness is we have to recognize in some of our history that the collar, the tradition this collar represents, in some ways has led to or held a culture of stigma around mental illness, that sometimes pastors will leave it at go and be in deep and profound prayer about this, but not take the next step to refer to the mental health services that are available. Sitting at that same civil luncheon last year with Chief Jailer Ostrander, he got up and said that his jail was the largest provider of mental health services in Dougherty County. If that's not a wake-up call, do we want that last, final legal system? Do we want our criminal justice system to be the one that has to offer these mental health services? Or can organizations like ours, down in the midst of touching families well before they make it there, well before they make it to the hospital? So if you're a pastor, whether you wear a collar or not, whatever your tradition, my encouragement is to seek out organizations like ours and others to do preventative, proactive work in the areas of mental illness. Pray deeply with them, beyond your skill set, get them to a counselor, get them to an organization. So thank you, and I appreciate the time of the commission this morning.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of your hard work, and we appreciate it. This is certainly an area that has much need for mental health services and mental health awareness, and very thankful. Thank you. All right. Next, we're going to have a presentation from Election Supervisor Ginger Nickerson, who is present to update the Commission on the Albany-Dougherty County Board of Registration and Elections request to add ballot drop boxes at the Tallulah-Massey, Southside, and Northwest libraries. Good morning, Ms. Nickerson. How are you doing?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm well, and yourself?
Very good. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. If the board would let me expand on what has taken place, the Board of Elections met a special call meeting on Wednesday, September the 9th. At that meeting, majority vote requested that we add to our full-time staff 2 staff members, and also that the drop boxes be provided at the 3 locations that was named. In addition to that, staffing be added to assist with processing those ballots, as well, in addition to a vehicle be provided, because we want to be able to pick up the ballots in a county marked car, making it official. And there was also some comments on the Facebook live feed that stated that that was their concern. They did not want us riding around with ballots in our vehicles when we pick those ballots up.
Okay. Ms. Nickerson, can you walk me? I've received here, and you said, first of all, you mentioned it was a majority vote. What was the vote?
It was 4-1.
4-1.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I've got here a document that's entitled the Elections Fiscal Year 21 Budget Adjustment Recommendation, and it has several line items. First one is drop boxes, and it says $20,000, security cameras $18,000, drop boxes $1,200, and contingency $800. Can you walk? I'd like to walk through this budget recommendation, if you don't mind. So let's start with that, and if you could explain that to me.
The drop boxes, the 20,000, the security cameras, the estimated cost is 18K. We know that there's state mandated guidelines for the drop boxes, and security cameras must be provided. They also must be able to provide a certain type of recording that must be maintained for a certain time frame. So that was the cost estimated in the cameras. The boxes themselves was the 1,200. The contingency is due to staffing that we would need to require staffing to, because also the law requires 2 individuals to report to each drop box to remove the content. So you cannot send a single person out. Sorry.
Chairman, if
Yes.
you don't mind, I'd like to
Yes. Yeah.
jump in here. This is an estimated cost of $20,000. We are still waiting to hear back from TAC, our IT department, on the cost for the connectivity. I can't remember what it's called. What is it called?
We cannot hear Mike.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, we cannot hear.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. All right, yes, the contingency is based on us not knowing at this particular moment what the IT cost is going to be.
Talk into the mic.
Yes, sir, I am. Hello? Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now. I can hear you now, Mr. McCoy.
Oh, okay, is this better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, all right, good deal. All right, so the contingency of $800 also has to do with us not knowing currently what the IT cost is going to be.
Okay. But, excuse me, I thought we was going to use the camera system that we already have in place.
Well, that's what the coalition group told you all, that we could connect to the library's existing security camera system, and they also stated that we could use the book drop boxes to collect ballots. Both of those are incorrect. It's misinformation.
So,
The fact is, the security system at the library is state-owned and operated, and we do not have the authority or ability to connect into that system.
okay, so we're gonna have now we're going back to a separate system.
Yes.
Separate recording, okay, all right. And then my understanding of what you were saying with the 2 people, I guess, Mr. Chairman, 2 people, the extra first, let's just go with the first 2 people. 2 people every day, if we add those 3 extra boxes, we need 2 additional employees to go around throughout the day, whichever times Ms. Ginger said, to just get the ballots out, okay? Now, the day of election, you need those people where you're gonna have to remove each one of the boxes simultaneously at the same time. Yeah, but- so let's just go with the first 2 people now that we need now.
Say that one more time.
The first 2 people now that she needs, if we add 3 additional boxes, me and you, I'm just using the example, breaking it down real simple. Me and you have to be in a county vehicle to go and remove the ballots from the box. That's like every day up to the election. Now, the day of the election, we have to move 3 boxes simultaneously at the same time. So still you go, then that day you need 2, well, you need 4 more people because you already hired the first 2. So you're gonna need 4 additional. So you gotta move them simultaneously. So then we're gonna need what? A lift truck to pick the whole thing up.
So may I interject, please, Mr. Chairman? So if you would go to the next line item, part-time salary budget increase. The elections department has a line item in their budget for part-time salaries. We need to increase that by $20,000. That will cover any additional manpower, personnel that we will need to not only address the drop boxes, but also to process to help us with processing in the elections office. So we feel that $20,000 increase from the $30,000 budget to $50,000 will give us the ability to do what we need to do to manage the additional drop boxes as well as the other responsibilities. And I would also like to say that typically during an election, a general election year, we would adjust the election board's budget upward.
Okay.
Because it's more expensive. We didn't do that this year. We kept the budget the same.
Okay.
For simplicity. So this isn't all about the drop boxes.
Okay.
The drop box is a small piece.
That's where I was sort of
Yes.
driving at with this inquiry. I wanted to sort of figure out, all right, what is Dropbox expense? What is the reasonable and necessary expense associated with a general election of this type that happens every 4 years? And, you know, I'm interested in, if this is sort of a unique creature that happens every 4 years, then it's sort of like at Macy's, they hire, you know, Christmas help, so to speak, that come in and help during the busy season. And then that doesn't become a part of Macy's budget every single year, but it's part of the additional overhead that you have. So that's
correct. So about 40,000 will come off in FY22.
okay.
But
So-
this fiscal year, because we didn't during the budget process adjust her budget upward, we need to do it now. So part of it is a drop box, but the other part of it is it's a general election year, and we would have done this anyway.
I'm curious, okay, so then there is the recommendation for 2 full-time employees. One is a voter registration specialist at $35,000, and the second is an assistant supervisor of elections for $45,000. These appear to be full-time employees that would become a part of the budget, and it represents an $80,000 increase in the overall budget. Can you, Ms. Nickerson, help me understand how the Board of Elections came to that recommendation? That's a significant increase in the overall budget for an organization within the county that has operated very successfully for a very long time. I recognize that COVID-19 has presented new challenges, but could you walk me through that, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, these are requests that I've made 2 budgets in a row. I made it the previous and I made it this budget. The county administrator allowed for one this time, and due to COVID, that one was removed. For an office our size in the elections process, 5 people are really, it's to assist us to make it. With the changes that are occurring, when you're talking about 60,000 registered voters, there are a lot of different changes on our front now with this new system. We've been in need of assistance. COVID made it even more. Without the assistance of our brothers and sisters in the county, we would not have made it through June because we were essential workers. So you're talking about 3 people doing the work for Dougherty County. And
Yes,
without the Sheriff's Department, without the library staff, without finance, without Dougherty County being
Y'all wouldn't have
one,
made it.
we would have never made it.
I understand.
Never.
Okay.
And the process is very intricate in what we do. You don't just pick up the ballots. You've got to verify that they've signed it. If they haven't signed it, then that means you've got to send them an affidavit, which gives them time until the Friday after the election to verify that. There are a lot of, and then the state mandated things that we're up against because we have to remain in compliance. These are not things that we make up. These are things that the state requires us to do, and there's just a lot of work.
Understood. Mr. McCoy?
Yes, sir. I was going to add that for similarly sized communities, their staffing level is at least 5. We have more polling locations than these other communities that are similarly situated. We were able to get through this last election because we were closed to the public, and so we had a lot of folks at home that were able to assist in the elections office. But now that we're open back up to the public, we don't have that flexibility in moving folks around. But we feel that this is a needed addition to the staffing. And I would also like to add that Ms. Nickerson is a subject matter expert.
Yes.
All of what she does is driven by the law. Well, if she goes away for whatever reasons, there aren't a whole lot of folks with this specialty
Right.
out there. We would be in a really tough spot. So having an assistant with the redundancy gives us the ability to continue our operations if there's any disruption. Her two assistants, we've had a lot of them cycle in and out. So she's been really the only constant that we've had in this office over time. And so we're really putting ourselves at risk by being dependent upon one person in that office.
I understand.
That makes sense.
I understand
Yeah,
very much.
but
Commissioner Edwards?
Well, in knowing all of that, what Mr. McCoy is saying, that means we shouldn't have denied you them 2 employees. You ain't got to say nothing, okay? So I'm gonna end that with that. If we knew all of that,
Yeah,
so believe it.
understood. All right.
Question, please. This is Gloria. This is
Commissioner Gaines?
Yes, thank you. Ms. Nickerson, in your statement regarding the two new and I assume permanent, right? Permanent employees. Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Those are permanent positions, right?
Yes, Commissioner Gaines.
But in your initial statement, you tied them to COVID. And when COVID goes away, then, I mean, what proportion is half of their work related to COVID or what? I don't quite understand the tie to COVID in your initial statement.
Commissioner Gaines, I think that message may have been lost a little bit. I think what Ms. Nickerson was saying is that the request for the 2 full-time employees has been a consistent request that preceded COVID, and obviously through the budgetary process, as we've obviously gone through significant challenges, those requests were considered, and then as we went through COVID, I believe that one of the requests had actually been preliminarily approved, but we were feeling the significant financial pressures of COVID, and at that time, before everyone had an opportunity to sort of take a microscope and look at this issue, that initial request was denied. But this opportunity has afforded the commission and Mr. McCoy and Ms. Nickerson and the Board of Elections to be able to revisit the issue and reconstitute the recommendation. Is that correct, Mr. McCoy?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, and I would like
Well,
to...
I thought you said that there was one additional employee request during regular budget process, and they've added another one apparently, and I'm assuming that second one was because of COVID.
She made a request for 2, and they were denied. I wanted to also...
I thought you said there was a request for 1 additional.
Yeah, so at this time, we're requesting 2 additional full-time employees.
Yeah, but let me be clear. Initially, there was a request during the regular budget process for 1 person, which got denied. And then you're coming back now requesting 2. Is that second one tied to COVID?
I think that was a miscommunication, Commissioner Gaines. I think what was initially communicated was that the request was for 2. During the budgetary process between the county administrator and Ms. Nickerson, there was a preliminary approval of 1 of those 2, which was then rescinded through the budgetary process as we were feeling the pressures of COVID, which is completely understandable. And then as we've revisited the issue now, it is, the request remains 2. It's not related to COVID. It is related to the overall perception and analysis by staff and by the Board of Elections. Does that make sense, Commissioner Gaines?
I got it.
Okay. Did I state that correctly, Ms. Nickerson?
Yes,
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, you
okay.
did.
Well.
All right. Very good. Commissioner Jones?
Yeah, look, I don't have a problem with this, but sometimes I kind of look at this thing like code enforcement. We're saying that we're going to need 2 employees. I don't mind giving 2 employees because I know elections is there, but I don't want to move anybody up to sit down. I want to make sure that if we're going to put these folks in place, that this elections office is going to run like a well-oiled machine, all 28 precincts open, and everything that's going to be necessary, what the what the Secretary of State's office is going to be required, that our folks are going to be doing it and doing it to the highest professional level that they have. That's what I want to make sure, that if we approve these 2 positions, I want to make sure that that the election office is going to be in very good shape for a long, long time.
All right, very good, very good. And I think that Ms. Nickerson's comments and Mr. McCoy's comments, I think they address your concerns, Commissioner Jones, which is this: there is a need for this work, because we have actually been drawing from other county employee resources on a sort of a voluntold basis to be able to fulfill the obligations of this office. Is that correct?
Yes, Chairman.
Right.
I would like to request that Ms. Nickerson make the distinction between the permanent staff and their role versus those that man the precincts.
There's a difference. The staff in our office, of course, the 5 individuals will be responsible for all of Dougherty County, all of the city of Albany. Of course, we facilitate the elections for the city of Albany. That is law. We also facilitate the county, the state elections as well. We're required to maintain a filing system. We're required to train to train poll workers. We're required to recruit the poll workers. The poll workers on themselves are part-time basis. That is our election day force. So we're still in the process of hiring poll workers. In fact, I was out of the office last week and we had a manager that's not going to be able to work, and we've got a precinct right now that's currently understaffed. So it is our goal, of course, to obtain all the staff that we can get in the office to maintain all of the state mandates, to ensure that the voters are taken care of, the phones are answered, the applications are being processed. But on the poll worker side, we're still on the recruitment to ensure that we have enough individuals. We want all 28 locations open. We know that there's going to be a line. However, it's going to be how the voters wait in that line. We want people to be able to greet the voters. We want people to be able to direct the voters. We need people to be able to process these voters, and we need them to be informed. And that's a part of the full-time staff responsibility, to make sure that we recruit these individuals, get them in, and train them thoroughly. Make sure that they're comfortable with the role that they're performing, and that they perform it to the best of their abilities, because this is a service and we're all servants. So we're here to serve the citizens, but we have to be prepared.
Question, please.
Yes, Commissioner Gaines?
Yes. For the 2 permanent employee requests, given the amount of time left between now and the elections, is it possible to have those people on board and trained, or is this not going to happen before the election?
That will be dependent upon when the job goes out. Of course, as far as the one position, we would only want to advertise that in-house. Then we would probably end up having to bring in 2 individuals. On-the-job training is what we do. There's not a classroom, a school that we go to that we can learn this information. We do a lot of training through the Secretary of State's office, but that's generally mandated once a year. So if we brought any individuals in, everybody is going to have to be trained. Everybody's going to have to learn the process, and the best way to learn it is to go through the process, which is what we're working on.
I'm sorry, Ms. Nickerson, what is the likelihood that they'll be on board by time of the election?
Can you repeat that, Commissioner Gaines?
What is the likelihood that these 2 permanent employees will be on board at the time of the November 3rd election?
Well, we will do our best, but there is a chance, we will do our best to recruit and employ these folks prior to the election. However, there is a chance that these roles will not be filled by the election.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let me, I want to make a few distinctions here for the record and for the minutes so that I am clear. The total recommended elections budget adjustment is $152,000. And I'm going to start at the bottom. 112,000 of the $152,000 recommended budget adjustment is for 2 full-time employees, their salaries and benefits. And this recommendation has been made in the budgetary process by the department head on behalf of the board that she serves for the past several years. Was that correct?
Yes. Yes,
Okay,
Mr.
so I mean, this is preceded COVID. It was based on the perceived need, the amount of volume that we have, irrespective of whether or not we're in a general election or not. It's just based on volume and need. Is that correct, Ms. Dickerson?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
So that $112,000 of this has nothing to do with COVID. So that leaves $40,000 left to analyze. The part-time salaries budget increase, which is $20,000, typically is incurred every fourth year as we encounter a general election and a significant increase in the overall number of ballots that are cast, and we use, and I don't know how else to say it. It's almost like hiring seasonal workers at Macy's or, a department store. And Mr. McCoy being, fiscally responsible during a year when we're having COVID-19, had eliminated that during his budgetary process in order to tighten our belt. And I appreciate him doing that, but this is something that we normally incur. So that means $132,000 of this request has nothing to do with COVID.
Correct.
All right. Now, I'm coming to the drop boxes, which is the boxes themselves are $1,200.
Yes, sir. They're about $400 a piece. What is this? A post that they sit on are about $300 a piece, and the box itself is $100 a piece.
Okay. And the security camera proposed budget is $18,000. Is that right?
Yes, sir. The preliminary cost estimate that we got last week was $18,000. Yes, sir.
And so there's no additional staffing that is necessary for COVID. The necessary staffing had already been a recommendation of this department prior to having a recommendation for boxes. But with your existing staffing, y'all can't cover the work that you have without boxes. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So $20,000 is related to COVID, and I want to make sure that I understand. And this is a state-approved process. This isn't like Dougherty County didn't come up with something, this is a state-approved process that has rules and regulations on how the box has to be maintained, the security cameras have to be there, et cetera. Is that right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Now I want to ask this question. With respect to communities of our size, looking at what other communities are doing, and I heard the gentleman that spoke at the last commission meeting where he talked about, Atlanta has, 15 or 10 or what. Yeah. We ain't Atlanta, we ain't Gwinnett County. We got about 94,000 people in Dougherty County. And I'm not saying, what I'm asking is this investment proportional to our population and consistent with what other communities of similar sizes are doing?
We're going above and beyond.
How much so?
With the 3 drop boxes, we've scanned from Valdosta to Rockdale County, which is equivalent to us in size. They have 16 precincts and 1 drop box.
And we have 27
We have
precincts?
28 precincts.
28 precincts.
Yes, sir. Macon Bibb, 1 drop box. We talked to Valdosta, 1 drop box. They don't have as many precincts as us either. None of the surrounding.
And we
counties.
already have 1 drop box.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It is. It is up now.
And will that be up on the day of election?
It will, and it will require us to have, which we had already included that in our plan, to have 2 people to process that drop box for us during the day, because as was stated, at 7 o'clock, there needs to be 2 people at each location. The ballot box needs to be removed, the ballots need to be removed, then the box itself would need to be physically removed as well. So on election day, that would require 8 people plus 4 other individuals to remove the box.
All right. So one of the things that strikes me is this. Everybody went through COVID. There's not a COVID handbook for dummies, and in government or elections. Like we're all learning. And I recognize that we also were thrown a couple curveballs by the Secretary of State's office, and it was what it was. And irrespective of whether or not we were thrown curveballs, the commissioners and other people absorbed certain complaints from the public, which I think a lot of times when you get complaints from the public, then you get new ideas, you get people that make presentations, and sometimes the presentations and the recommendations directly relate to a way to, quote, fix the problem, or sometimes the problem itself is because of understaffing or this or that. One of the things that strikes me is, take drop boxes out. And I'm not saying I'm against drop boxes, but what I'm saying is this. If we remove drop boxes from this discussion, and we fund the 2 full-time employees and the part-time salary budget increase, and we sort of imagine this next election cycle, are we eliminating effectively a lot of those complaints by adding those staff? Does that make sense?
It does.
What's your response to that, Ms. Nickerson?
I would say we are, but then, as you stated, the complaints, the drop boxes were the additional complaints, and that was the reasoning for the board to have the special call meeting. That was a new complaint that was brought to the board at a board meeting, and then I think it was brought to the commission.
Yeah. And what I'm pointing out is that when something goes wrong in government, then you get a whole bunch of recommendations. And it all comes from a very good place. It's not a criticism. I'm saying sometimes the recommendations actually relate to what went wrong operationally or what didn't. Or they're like, well, if they don't have enough staff, then we'll offer a box. And then instead of offering 1 box, let's offer 3 boxes. Or let's have, and what we're actually talking about is 4 boxes now. Like 4 boxes. What you got? And $18,000 worth of cameras to cover that, when in actuality what I'm perceiving as the problem was a problem that existed prior to COVID, which is we didn't have enough people to count the ballots and do the work. And so I'm sort of questioning in my mind, is it necessary? I mean, and I'm hearing there's not another county from Valdosta to Rockdale County that is of similar size that's offering 4 drop boxes. And considering the significant capital investment associated with that, which, I mean, $18,000 in cameras is a heck of a lot of money. And so, in my mind, I'm fine with the drop box. We've already got 1 drop box. We were able to absorb that expense easily here at the government center because we already had a security system that we could tie into. Is that correct, Mr. McCoy?
That's correct.
And so what I'm asking my fellow commissioners is, do we want to bite off 4 of these things, or do we want to see what an election cycle looks like and give the elections board the employees that they're asking for, and say, you know what, maybe let's open up 1 more drop box as opposed to 4, and let's see how that goes. Does that make sense? And I'm not saying I'm totally against 4, but that's a heck of a lot to open up, and $18,000 in cameras in a year where we've had to spend a lot of money on a lot of things, and that's just, I'm asking, I'm not telling. Does that make sense, Commissioner Edwards?
I mean, I agree partly. I think one thing I try not to do is compare myself with another county. And I can't answer if that other county had the outcry of certain organizations that came before them to ask them for the request. I think that's the difference there. We can't answer, did they come and say, hey, we need this, we need that. Now, I think what we have on the table as a board, that we did have a request. Now it's up to us whether we're going to answer that request. So now, I mean, we do have some challenges to me in our community with voter apathy. But then also I come back and say, well, if this can help, and it's not necessarily the cost for me, it's like we have these criticisms like that we're not trying to help. So I think the first statement when we came up with the drop boxes, we still thought we was going to be in isolation. So now the law has relaxed, so now everybody moving back around again. So again, I think that's how that conversation started at one time. So now we're like, everybody's moving around. Do we still need the drop boxes? So I guess
I get your point, and I agree.
Those
May I speak? I'd like to. I have a few points to make.
Sure, I'm going to let Commissioner Edwards finish his point. I'm going to make one quick response, and I'll call on you, Commissioner Gaines. Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
So that's kind of where I'm sold on the drop boxes based on going beyond what we have to do. I think that cut out criticism, but also, like you said, Mr. Chairman, it also bring in certain liability with the cameras or going through at night. Like when you have those 2 people during the daytime, they have to go and take the ballots out. So that means, again, you have that challenge where somebody maybe put a ballot in at 12:01 midnight. See, then we got to make sure we go back that morning to get those ballots out. So again, it increases, but I think because we have a public outcry, now it's up to us as a commission whether we're going to rise to that.
I think those are good points, and to your point about not comparing yourself to other counties, I agree with you, and that's why we're actually, the recommendation is for us to do 4 times what any other county has done, and what I was curious about is if we wanted to consider doing 2 or 3 times what any other county has done. And I also, I mean, and then secondarily, I can also say, okay, it's a one-time capital investment in security cameras, but it doesn't serve any other function except during election cycles. And that is a lot of capital investment for, something that happens once a year for, a certain period.
Well, I don't know, because one thing you said early on at the last meeting, is this going to be our new norm?
Right. And that's a fair point.
So is this going to be a one-time situation? And I think I don't know.
Who knows what the new norm?
Because that's what you were saying. Is it COVID, or is this going to be our new norm where we having drop boxes all the time? So again, I think
I got to think it probably is a new norm. So it's a good point. Commissioner Gaines.
A couple of points, please. In the last presidential preference primary, I think we had less than 30% voter turnout. We were in the middle of COVID. People did not go to the polls. The previous 2016 presidential preference primary, we had a 40% turnout. So I would say that COVID had a significant dampening effect on turnout. And I would say that had those boxes been there, you could very well have had a much higher turnout. The other point I'd like to make is that maybe there's an opportunity to consolidate some of the precincts and allow the boxes to serve instead of so many precincts. I heard you say that the other counties had fewer precincts. Perhaps we can have fewer precincts. That is a labor-intensive process, much more so than the box.
I agree with you 1,000%, Commissioner Gaines, and I will say this. I know that in the past, when those discussions have been raised, the outcry and there's been significant frustration and anger, even with respect to certain precincts that probably receive less than 100 ballots. And
yes.
that's
That's what I'm saying. Perhaps, and I don't know the discussion that the elections board had, but I heard the terminology of subject matter experts, and certainly they are more so than we are. But I think that maybe we could look at the possibility of consolidating, as we did in the last election, and using the boxes as a substitute for some of the precincts. And secondly, we have to look at geography. I know that we put the drop box close to the building, and you got to maybe if they're out in the community, people will be much more prone to run up the street and drop their ballots rather than running downtown. So the geography may have something to do with it as well.
let me
So
add.
I hope you understood the point that I
Yes,
made.
no, I think it was a very good point, and I think Commissioner Gaines has raised an excellent point, which is perhaps if you sort of view this problem as like a pressure cooker, and we have 28 precincts, and we all are elected officials. We look at the numbers. Some of those precincts receive virtually no voter turnout. I mean, or nominal voter turnout. I do think Commissioner Gaines raises a very good point, in that I would hope that if this board is willing to move forward with 4 drop boxes and the capital expenses associated with that the elections board would be receptive to consolidating some of those 28 precincts and saying to the folks that yell and fuss and scream about closing those precincts or consolidating them, that you've got 4 drop boxes, we have early voting, and perhaps we have 24 precincts for you to make use of. And maybe, just maybe, hopefully, that could result in some cost savings within the organization itself, particularly on Election Day, which is its most expensive day. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
You understand what I'm sort of hinting at?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I think this has been very good discussion, and we're going to move on.
One thing, I guess,
Commissioner
before you
Edwards.
close it, but
Mr. Chairman, before you
what
move
will
on,
your formula be? Like you pointed something out, whether it be precincts, so you got to come up with a formula. How would you decide which precincts you're going to close? Now, the ones you mentioned something about whether it's less than 100 participants. So again, you got to come up with a formula to make that distinction. So that would be coming from what, Ms. Ginger?
I would think that Ms. Ginger and the board would come up with
I agree. It should be them. Our job
it's not us.
primarily.
Yeah, I'm saying it should be, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I would make the recommendation, and they would make the majority vote. They're the
Right.
superintendent, so they make the decision. I just give recommendations.
Sure. And this actually expands voter access significantly. It expands the ability to early vote significantly, and places. What are the 4 locations?
At the,
Tallulah,
Number 2.
Massey, Southside Library, and Northwest Library. And of course,
So
downtown.
east side, south side, central here, and northwest side. Is that right? So
That's
like,
correct.
says geographically very equitable. Is that, do my commissioners agree with that?
Well, you left out the west side, but that's okay.
Okay.
Oh, which means that certainly a precinct in that area should not be closed.
I think that's a good point. All right, very
So,
good.
I mean, I think we need to leave it to the elections and trust that they would look at the equity of what they're doing, and that their recommendation also for the 3 additional boxes that they considered equity. I am sure that they did that. So,
All right. Okay.
if they could look at the consolidation issue together with the box.
Do we, I'm going to ask this question. Do we have consensus and obviously we're not taking official action, do we have consensus to accept the recommendation of the recommended elections budget adjustment of $152,000, along with the message that we would respectfully request that the elections board please revisit the issue of consolidation of precincts in an equitable format? Is there consensus for that, Commissioner Edwards?
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner
There
Gaines?
is consensus, however, it appears, if Mr. McCoy could let us know where the additional money is coming from and how much money would be saved by not opening some of these things. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Just send that to us.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I would like to add that when we approved the budget, we agreed that we would revisit and amend the budget in October. And so this is just one, because it was accelerated due to the request for the drop boxes. But we're going to come back and revisit the budget in October anyway to make adjustments. And so there are other departments that we're going to be making recommendations to amend their budgets as well.
I'm good with that, Mr. Chairman.
Very good.
Let me say something before we move on, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, sir.
I think you made some great points there, and you, Commissioner Gaines, as well, Commissioner Evans. I think what we have to look at here is these cameras and the boxes. I know you're saying this is a one-time investment. We can use this. We can use this at all the elections, unless the Secretary of State changes his format. Am I right about that, Ms. Nickerson?
Yes, Commissioner Jones, you're correct.
Okay. So the thought came out. We're doing 4 times more than what every other county our size is doing. And this is what I want to say to that point. There is sometimes we have to step out of the box and do more than what's expected of us. If we're going to be average, we're going to be just as close to the top as we are the bottom. So we may need to step out of the box, and I think it's going to be great for us to step out of the box and do more than what's expected of us in this case right here. Hire the employees, get the box, follow the elections board recommendation, call it a day because of the fact it's just a simple phrase. You have to pay for the service, and the price of doing business has gone up, and it's up. So we need to go ahead and revitalize and make our election office one of the best in the state of Georgia, if not the best.
Mr. Chair, this may be a transitional process, and in the end, it may very well work to our favor.
It's a very good point. Commissioner Jones, am I hearing you that you're voicing your consensus?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. 100%.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, sir. Consensus.
Consensus, okay. Commissioner Gray?
No, I don't consent to agreeing with the recommendations of the Board of Elections. Really, on the principle of fiscal responsibility, we're in a budget year where we really don't need to be spending money on things we don't need with spending money we don't have. This is an unfunded mandate that ends up coming back to the taxpayers in order to give more access to voting, and yet we have the most access to voting compared to any other county our size in the state of Georgia, as Ms. Nickerson has done her homework and provided some foundation for that. Consolidating precincts certainly may work, depending on the number of resources we have, but we know we'll hear just as big a stink from the public about taking away the precinct down the street that I voted at for 50 years, as we will about adding new drop boxes. We also add exponential liability to the county, the Department of Elections, and the state of Georgia for the safety and security of these ballots. All it takes is for one drop box to be stolen with ballots in it, and there's a huge issue. You're not going to steal a precinct on election day. I don't disagree with the principle of the drop boxes, but I think scaling up this quickly, this early in their utilization with elections is a very dangerous precedent to set, and especially spending money that, frankly, we don't need to spend at this point is why you don't have my consensus.
Understood. All very good points, too. I'm going to thank everyone for their debate and comments on this subject. Ms. Nickerson, I thank you and the Elections Board for your hard work on this. This discussion matter is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other delegations that did not previously sign up that wish to be heard at this time? Mr. Wright.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, this presentation is about diversity and inclusion, agenda item D9, the workforce group proposed contract. And what we're asking in specific here is about inclusion of minority businesses, and to give you some examples why this is important. Something has to be wrong when in a community of our size that we are agreeing to spend $1,100,000 to a firm we know very little about, and they're supposed to help us with disaster related issues, and we've been through a plethora of disasters since the flood of '94. The point here is we should have learned something from how to do things. The first thing about that is we need to put this proposed contract online, and then we'll come back next week and look at those things. But there is one piece of federal legislation that will be important, and it's going to be interesting to see if this contract has 24 CFR 13530 in it. 24 CFR 13530 requires 30% of minority and very low-income business participation. So if you have a contract for $100,000, and we do not have people here in Dougherty County, we got 6 institutions of higher learning, and people do not know how to handle meeting with the federal government. Now, something is just wrong with that. Not to include the Commodore Conyers College of Careers. You got all these facilities out there, and yet we got to go halfway across the country to get somebody that shows how to fill out forms to get money from HUD. Something's just wrong with that. So in the first paragraph, this is what we're looking at. You don't have any minority business proposed in this. So one, that's why we're asking you to put the contract online, let us look at it and see. That contract ought to have some capacity building, especially if you count from the flood of '94 to now how many disasters we've had. We got 6 institutions for higher learning, but yet we don't know how to fill out forms to deal with the federal government. Let me give you a practical example about that. When the pandemic hit, and Congress decided to come up with a payroll protection program, there were 2,000 businesses from Dougherty County that applied. My employer told me that was going to be my responsibility. Out of those 2,000 businesses, there was not a minority business included in there that received the grant for under $150,000. And we would ask that any of you who are county commissioners, if you benefited from the payroll protection program, to disclose it, because next week we're going to come back and look at why no minority business was able to get any of those grants out of 2,000. In the second paragraph, we have OCGA 50, 1870, and 5046 respectively. And asking the county, just as well as the city and the Board of Education, to stop trampling on the sunshine laws. There ought to be some community advocacy group made a part of this when you can spend $100,000 with one firm and do not know anything about them. In paragraph 3, we point that out for you to look at. The contract as proposed is supposed to be workforce group doing construction. Constructing what? What are they going to be constructing? In addition, in no consideration, this is in paragraph 4, appears to have been excited administration that says how the advent of pandemic has driven economic and psychosocial needs that still remain untapped. In other words, what we're asking you to look at and reconsider, Commissioner, here is the pandemic has exacerbated everything that one can imagine. So the contract that was put together 6 months ago to go out to do things that are disaster-related needs some additional adjustments. There are unmet needs now that not were present 6 months ago. So we need to look at this contract, so put it online. Let's see if it's complicit with 24 CFR 13530. And then the other thing there we're asking you to take a look at is why no minority business when we can spend $100,000. The Dougherty County Commission, the Albany City Commission, and the Dougherty County Board of Education spend $1 billion every 18 months. And no one has a minority business program. No one. Ever since the advent of Chairman Cohilas, how many contracts can we point out that have gone, have been direct to minority business? Back in 1977, there was a Supreme Court decision made when you have disparities such as the ones we have here. It in and of itself gives grounds for you to create economic opportunity. That case was Fuller versus Krebs. On page 2, we'll ask you to look at that first paragraph there. We're asking that the commission will consider minority business be included in the contract workforce group, and it should be predicated upon some genuine public benefit. We're well beyond being overwhelmed by the pandemic, and some consideration should be given to return public trust. If you will, if you look at the demographics that are on page 4, you will see why this is important. Now, we have to build capacity. And when we come back next week, we're going to provide some additional information. But look at page 3, if you will. Page 3 chronicles 22 years of discrimination by Dougherty County. You'll see in the extreme left column there, no minority business got a nickel out of 11 years of contracting. We had a company that come here called Diesel. Diesel would come here every week in their own helicopter or whatever venue they use. They may have had a Cadillac Escalade, but they loaded $300,000 up every month and went back. But you see results over 11 years, 0. Diesel got $333,000 a month. I was here, so I know that's what they got. Now, I talked with the principal about South Carolina. You look at that second column there, in construction of goods and services. 11 years, minority businesses got 0. Well, in the second column, it was less than 1/3 of 1%. That's what was directed to minority business when you look at Dougherty County and its role in construction services. Again, if you go back to the 1977 Supreme Court case of Fuller versus Cripps, it pointed out significantly that when you have disparities such as the ones we have here, the mere fact that there are no minority businesses is implicit of discrimination. Now, the issue may be whether it's overt or construct, but it's still there. It's systemic forces. And then on page 4, you have your demographic. Now, one thing about it, if you look on that first group that's grayed out, it shows the city of Albany population minority, 77%. But you have to understand the way the census data is captured, it's actually higher than that, 80%, because the census data for our county has been hovering around 70%. So you have to take that 70% and then adjust it for the amount that were not counted, which shows how the outpouring of poverty is much higher, as well as the minority population. 77, when you look at the city of Albany approaching 80%, and then Dougherty County approaching 75%. And it gives rise to all those things when you were talking about or discussing the need and additional requests from the election office. All of those things give rise to why that need is there. So again, we're asking that one, look and consider this, put the proposed contract of work group incorporated online, and then we'll come back, and then we would ask again that anyone on the county commission, if you benefited from the SBA payroll protection program, disclose how you have benefited, because we're going to bring that data back for you consider next week. So we'll stop right here and then bring that information back next week. Mr. Chairman, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Gaines?
Yes, I just want to say publicly that I am really quite sympathetic with what Mr. Wright is bringing forward. And I am completely befuddled by the fact that we have a minority community in the proportions that we do, and that we don't have that capacity to really compete for this kind of service. And I don't know what our responsibility is in building that capacity, but I do believe we have a responsibility. Now, I would love to see some kind of commission put together, an informal commission, with folks like Dr. Anthony Parker, to try to figure out, because it doesn't make any sense economically to have a minority community like this, and they're not participating in the in a capitalist society the way that we are. It makes no sense to me. So I just think that it's a problem that we try to grapple with it. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Wright. Any other delegations that did not previously sign up that wish to be heard at this time? All right. We're going to move on to items for discussion for the regular meeting scheduled September 21st, 2020. Minutes of the August 17th regular meeting. Is there any comments, questions, or discussion? There being none, we'll move on to the next item. Recommendation to accept the Insurance Review Committee's recommended health benefits plan renewal and plan design changes for the 2021 plan year. Mr. McCoy and NFP Vice President Tammy Starkey will address. Consultants Jim Britton, John Scarborough, and the Insurance Review Committee members Scott Addison, Dominique Hall, Martha Henley, Kenneth Johnson, Chuck Mathis, and John Ostrander are present. Mr. McCoy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are delighted. This will be our first presentation with our new health plan consultant broker, NFP. We have been accustomed to working with Spencer Allen in IOA, and we've transitioned effective July 1. We've put in a lot of work. We're glad to have NFP on board. We met, the IRC met last week, and we have some recommendations that we're going to present to you through Ms. Starkey. They will involve cost savings. You'll hear about cost savings, volunteer benefits improvements as well as plan design changes. We have the Insurance Review Committee members here present. They have all worked very diligently to make sure that our plan, which is very rich, is financially viable and is maintained for the benefit of the plan participants. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Ms. Starkey to make her presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. So I'm going to review the presentation that's in page 9 of your packet. And first starting, we wanted to discuss the Nfp Partnership, and we're very grateful to be on board working with the county as of July 1st. First step with our partnership was to remove all commissions paid on benefit lives of coverage, and also to negotiate all fixed costs on the benefit plan for the 2021 plan year. And so with the removal of commissions and our negotiations, we were able to save the county and employees a little over $358,000 in fixed costs for the coming plan year. We will also be implementing and rolling out an online enrollment platform and benefit administration software called bSwift. So that will be available this month for any new hires, processing terminations, qualifying life events that would cause a change in coverage, and then all open enrollment elections will be made within one online enrollment platform. NFP's team also provides an employee advocacy service that would assist employees with the enrollment process, answer any questions regarding their options, providing a detailed understanding of how their benefit works, and also assisting them with claims resolution throughout the year. We're also providing wellness consulting strategy and overall program management of a wellness program so that we can maximize results of a comprehensive program to really impact and improve the health of the members and manage the long-term cost of the benefit programs. We conducted for 2021 a complete market review of all benefits to ensure that the county is partnered with vendors that provide competitive contracts and also the best value premiums. And then we've conducted a thorough actuarial modeling and projection of future costs so that we're able to set the necessary funding for the health plan appropriately. Because the health plan is self-funded and the primary expense on the plan is claims costs for medical and prescription drug claims, it's very important that we're able to accurately project future costs so that the county and employees are able to appropriately fund the plan and ensure the financial viability.
All right. Any comments or questions on that matter?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
So the holding the contract for 2 years, does that lock in our costs for the following year?
Does it lock in your fixed costs?
Yes, ma'am. Does it make it easier?
Well, we definitely start at a lower price point with the negotiations of removing the commissions that have been done. Some of the fixed costs around the life insurance and ancillary benefits are locked in. The health plan costs for the administration and the stop loss will be renewable each year. Those are not locked in.
Okay. So give me an understanding on the percentage change from the employee from the county doing the 18.8 down to 12%. What kind of cost is that for an employee's paycheck?
Yeah, sure. So for the employees, with the proposed recommendation, would see a 10% increase. The county would continue to contribute 84% of the total cost for the active employees and the retirees on the plan. So for an employee on the lower plan option, which is majority of our population, we'll see single coverage will increase $8.67 a month. Employee plus one dependent will increase $16.99 a month, and someone with family coverage will increase $21.59 a month.
So right now, what is the employee wellness participation?
Wellness participation right now is 60%, and so our target moving into the new plan year will be at least 80%. The goal there is to really identify those with unknown health risk by having them participate in those biometric screenings and the health assessment, so that we can go ahead and help them manage those conditions, improve their health, and avoid any catastrophic claims that would impact the cost of the health plan as well as their livelihood.
Okay. Now, the proposed wellness surcharge of $50, does that now make the employee clinic not free?
It will be assessed monthly, but it will be assessed in 2022. So employees will need to participate in 2021 to avoid the surcharge that would be assessed in 2022.
So the clinic will still be a free use or not? I didn't catch that.
Absolutely. Yes, the clinic will still be free for all services, for any chronic conditions, acute care, as well as medication.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
All right, any other comments or questions? Being none, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you very much, Ms. Starkey. Recommendation to accept the quote to upgrade the camera system at Public Works and the surveillance system at Radium Springs from the lowest responsible and responsive vendor, meeting specifications and Vision Technologies out of Albany, Georgia, in the amount of $28,932. Two quotes were received, with the highest being $29,270.04. Funding is budgeted in SLOSS 7, Public Works Facility Improvements and Equipment. Mr. Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This upgrade of our current camera system will allow for expansion as we bring new projects online. And, you know, the first one of these is the Radium Springs Gardens, the memorial area. So this project will upgrade our current system to allow us to put cameras out there and monitor them at Public Works main office. So all that's included in this. We recommend approval.
All right, any comments, questions, or discussion? Being none, thank you very much, Mr. Addison. The recommendation to accept the quote to replace the return fan on the third floor of the Judicial Building for the lowest responsible and responsive vendor, meeting specifications, safe air heating and cooling out of Albany, Georgia, in the amount of $26,245. Three quotes were received, with the highest being $45,257. Funding is budgeted in SLOSS 7, Judicial Building Improvements. Mr. Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This replacement and upgrade is needed. We recommend approval.
Any comments, questions, or discussion? Being none, we'll move on to the next item. Recommendation to purchase 12 radios for DCP from the single source vendor Motorola Solutions out of Albany, Georgia, in the amount of $76,648.08. This vendor provides radios for the local public safety offices. Funding is budgeted in the SLOSS 7 DCP vehicle equipment. Mr. Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is our regularly scheduled replacement of radios that we do each year. We recommend approval.
Any comments, questions, or discussion? All right, next, recommendation to purchase 10 stainless steel toilet sink combination units for the jail from the single source vendor Engineering and Equipment Company, Albany, Georgia, in the amount of $24,450. This vendor has provided the toilet sink combination units for the jail for over 5 years. Funding is budgeted in SLOSS 7, jail equipment. Mr. Addison.
Yes, sir. We recommend approval of this purchase.
Any comments, questions, or discussion? Next, recommendation to accept the quote to install iWave C duct mounted auto cleaning needle point bipolar ionization systems at the jail. The recommendation is to award to the lowest responsible and responsive vendor, meeting specifications, RHC Heating and Cooling out of Albany, Georgia, in the amount of $47,148.21. Three quotes were received, with the highest being $54,834. Funding will be provided from the general fund. Mr. Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This recommendation is in line with the other installations that we have done at similar buildings, county-owned buildings. It's a very similar system, and we recommend approval of this installation.
Comments, questions, or discussion?
Question, please.
Yes.
Is it our intention to install these systems in all county buildings?
We have previously approved installing them in most of our buildings, but we have not made a commitment to install them in all of our buildings.
Okay.
Is there, have you established the priority buildings? And if so, can we have them in advance?
Yes, ma'am. So previously, we've made a recommendation to install them in most of our buildings downtown. And the jail, I think, is 5 acres under one roof. And they've done a tremendous job with managing COVID. And so this was a very appropriate.
I'm just simply asking if you know what additional buildings you are proposing.
No, we don't have any additional buildings to propose at this time. It's just the jail.
All right, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Gaines. Any other comments, questions, or discussion? All right, recommendation to accept the bid to complete the 2019 alley paving improvements from the lowest responsible and responsive bidder meeting specifications, Jim Boyd Construction out of Albany, Georgia, in the amount of $641,687.25. 5 bids were received with the highest base bid being $1,066,158. Funding is budgeted in T-SPLOST. Mr. Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're pleased to bring this to the commission. This is the first phase of our asphalt alley paving under T-SPLOST, and we recommend approval of this bid.
Any comments, questions, or discussion?
A request, please, if you would, Mr. Addison. If you would send me the criteria you used to determine which of the alleys was paved versus which received crushed rock.
Okay. I think we can get that information, can't we?
Yes.
So I need the criteria because it looks like they're clustered in 2 different places. One place, all of the alleys received paving, and in another part of the county, all of them received crushed rock.
Yes, we distributed the priority list that the board approved sometime back.
I understand. I'm just asking for the criteria.
Yes, ma'am. Larry Cook is coming forward to address your question.
Was the question about the criteria? Is that what you was asking? Yes, ma'am.
And you can just send it to me. You don't have
Yeah,
to
okay.
write.
We have it here in a presentation that we presented to the board.
I think Commissioner Gaines just wants us to email it to her.
We've got it. We can get that to
All
her.
right, thank you very
Yes,
much.
Okay,
Thank you,
it.
Commissioner
Yes, ma'am.
Gaines.
Thank you.
All right. Recommendation to accept the proposal to provide CDBG DR homeowner and reconstruction professional services from the most responsive and responsible bidder, meeting specifications, workforce group out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in a not-to-exceed amount of $1,111,650. The contract will fulfill state and federal community development block grant disaster recovery statutory responsibilities under award number B18DP-13-001/DR4294 and DR4297. Funding is available in the CDBG DR grant. Mr. McCoy.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This has been a long time coming. We're recommending approval. We have gone through an extensive process to secure a vendor in collaboration with the state Department of Community Affairs. As you recall, the state received over $50 million in CDBG DR funding for the very first time. And this is our homeowner rehabilitation program. A lot of effort went into this. We have a subject matter expert in Miss Georgia Bowling, who worked for the city of New Orleans and managed billions of dollars in CDBG DR projects. She led this effort when we bid this out, and there were only 2 bidders. This is a very specialized service. And so, again, we're excited about this, and we project, if this is accepted and approved by the board, that the program will be up and running sometime in December.
Very good. All right, comments, questions, or discussion?
I have a comment, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. McCoy, under the background information, would you read paragraph 3? Try to put you on the spot.
Yes, sir, I see it.
Could you read that out loud for us, please, for the record?
Yeah, the PAG recommends the workforce group as the most responsive and responsible proposer to provide for community development, block grant, disaster recovery, homeowner rehabilitation, and reconstruction professional services.
And the one before that, sir, I'm sorry.
That's 4, yeah. A proposal analysis group consisting of Yvette Fields, Kimberly M. Allen, City of Albany Procurement, Georgia Collier Bowling, Dougherty County Disaster Recovery Manager, Angel Gray, Planning and Development Department, and Shalina Hawkins, Community Economic Development Department, evaluated the proposers on experience, qualifications, approach, Section 3 business participation, and M/WBE participation and fee proposal.
And so these companies showed that they participate in Section 3 business as well as MWBE.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Excellent point. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. All right, next, recommendation to declare the listed vehicles and equipment as surplus and authorizing the sale of same via an online auction. Mr. Addison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the standard approach to get rid of equipment that is reached the end of its life cycle and has been replaced. We recommend approval.
Okay, any comments, questions, or discussion? There being none, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Mr. Addison. Proposed board appointment. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Listed below is the Chehaw Park Authority for one appointment. As you may recall, Mr. Gregors came earlier in the year regarding the reauthorization that was going to be taken to the Georgia General Assembly. And the Georgia General Assembly did approve the reauthorizations, which will now allow Dougherty County Board of Commissioners to make one appointment to that board. This one term will be beginning July 1, 2020 and ending June 30th, 2023, and it's going to be a 3-year term. And you do have the qualifications in your packets for the 2 interested parties. Nominations will be taken next week.
Thank you. So the Chehaw Park Authority, our 2 applicants are Richie Marbury and Jay Scott Steiner. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Any comments, questions, or discussion on those? There being none, I'm going to turn over to Mr. McCoy.
Nothing further. Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Edwards.
Nothing, sir.
Commissioner Gaines.
Have we met since August 17th? Our minutes, the minutes in our package is dated August 17th.
Yes, ma'am, and that's correct. That follows our standard, and
Okay.
it'll be a little complicated for me to explain, but I can contact you
I
how we
got
do
it.
approval.
All right.
I got it.
All right. Commissioner Jones.
Nothing, sir.
Commissioner Gray.
Nothing further, thank you.
Commissioner Johnson.
Nothing further, sir. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to take a rare point of privilege at the end of this meeting and make a few comments.
Mr. Chairman, quickly, this is Spencer.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lee, I forgot.
That's all right. I don't have anything. I just want to let the commission know that I'm on.
Thank you.
Yo.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lee. I'm going to take a point here. This past week, I had a neighbor, I'm not going to name them, but a neighbor who was driving down Slappy Boulevard with their family, and their vehicle was struck by a stray bullet on Slappy, but for the grace of God, that bullet struck the metal frame as opposed to going through the window and could have either killed the father, the mother, or the 6-month-old child that was in the vehicle. And while I'll say this, you can never predict the activity of criminals because they are by definition chaos. But what I do have to say is this, and I have brought it up again and again and again, and I'm going to bring it up again to the point where I'm going to make people feel very uncomfortable. The gun violence that we have in this community is directly related to drugs and gangs. I continue to watch and I continue to complain about the fact that our Albany-Dougherty drug unit remains woefully and inexcusably understaffed by the city of Albany. It is a joint partnership between the Sheriff's Department, the Dougherty County Police Department, and the city of Albany. And 99% of the crime that unit is supposed to prevent or to arrest or to prosecute is within the city limits. In fact, they have a great commander, Ryan Ward, who I knew and worked with when I was in the DA's office. But again and again and again, the county, through its investments at the Sheriff's Department and DCP, fully staff or close to fully staff their obligation to this unit. This unit has been woefully understaffed for years and years and years by the city of Albany. And when this unit was operating correctly, and it was actually the mission of the city of Albany through its police department investments, and this is not a criticism of Chief Pursley. This is a criticism because he's a fine man and a good leader. But this comes from the top. And until the city of Albany, whether it's through its manager or through its council members or whoever, actually make sure that investment is taken care of, we're going to continue to see unfettered crime and unfettered violence. I worked as part of a team at the DA's office when we served proactive warrants where literally gang members and drug dealers were worried that no-knock search warrants were going to come into their neighborhoods and arrest them. We cleaned things up. We had the GBI come down and do undercover drug operations for weeks at a time and round up tons of people that have nothing better to do than to fire guns, scare people, and rob and steal. And I am going to continue to bring this up and make hay of it because it is inexcusable. It is meant to be a partnership between the city and the county through the Sheriff's Department and DCP and the Albany Police Department. And time and time and time again, it is woefully understaffed. I am sick of it, and I'm going to be very, very loud about this, and I'm not going to be nice about it. Thank you. We're adjourned.